Okay, I have started the webinar and this webinar is being recorded. Justin?
Great. Good afternoon and welcome to the Lawyer Assistance Program Oversight Committee meeting of the State Bar. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. Jennifer, can you please take the roll?
Justin Delacruz?
Here.
Heather Benton?
Here.
Jim Hiding? Tracy Lesage?
Here.
Phil Spiegel? Martin Williams?
Here.
Elise Yenny?
Here.
We have a quorum, Justin.
Great. Thank you. And next on the agenda is call for public comment. Jennifer, is there any public comment?
There is no call for public comment. There are no commenters.
Okay.
Jennifer, do you mind saying so that people, in case there's anyone on the phone, if they could raise their hand? Looks like we have a couple of these coming in, just in case.
Okay, if you are on the phone or an attendee and you have public comment, please raise your hand. We have 2 attendees and I don't see any raised hands.
Okay. Great. So I think that brings us to letter A, the chair's report, and there is none. So we'll move on to the staff report. And this item is being presented by Michelle Harmon.
I'm actually going to pass this on to Erica. I don't have anything new or interesting to share with you all, but Erica does.
Well, and you're going to get quite a daisy chain of passing along. So what I was hoping to do this morning is introduce Kathy Ungiri to the committee. I believe we've spoken about Kathy at previous meetings back in December about how she was hired in as a senior attorney in the Office of Professional Competence with an education focus to be developing content, including content for the support services side of the Lawyer Assistance Program. I'm happy to announce that Kathy has impressed us so much that she's been promoted into the managing attorney position. So she has she's the direct supervisor of the support services program on our office's side of the Lawyer Assistance Program, so the support services side. So I was going to go ahead and let Kathy go ahead and give our staff report for support services. I will just so you guys know, Kathy will be showing up a lot more at these meetings. And like Melanie is here today, I will be sitting in on them for the most part as well, but Kathy will be taking kind of the leadership role on this committee for our office. But I will be around, so if you guys have any questions on anything, you're welcome to reach out to either one of us.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for welcoming me, Erica, and thank you for everybody. I have experience staffing committees, so I hope that I can be a valuable asset to the LAP Oversight Committee. And in terms of a staff report, I just wanted to provide a brief update. So we have continued to give the competency presentations. Lita has given about 30 of those this year, and we have many more scheduled. We are also working on updating the practice management resources and the senior resources on our website. And then in terms of the senior lawyers, we are also working on a cognitive decline presentation that we hope to offer as a LAP support presentation similar to the competency one. We continue to think about ways to expand LAP support, and we're discussing the options around that. Finally, I just wanted to say that next week is Wellbeing Week in Law. So I encourage everybody that's on social media to share the State Bar's posts that focus on LAP. I know there will be a video going out on Monday with Lita, starring Lita. So please, if you are on the socials, please follow those, like those, and yeah, thank you for welcoming me. I guess I should ask, are there any questions? Okay, hearing none, I guess we can move on.
And thank you, Kathy. We look forward to working with you and look forward to working with you closely over the next couple of years. So now we'll return to the business portion of the agenda. Next on the agenda is item C1, approval of the February 10, 2023 open session minutes. Are there any corrections or modifications to the open session minutes? Seeing none, may I have a motion in a second?
So moved.
I'll second.
I see we have Tracy Sage moving, and I missed the who seconded.
I think it's
Is it Heather?
Heather.
Heather?
Heather motioned and
Oh,
Tracy seconded, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
sorry, I
Thank
got it
you.
reverse. Jennifer, please call the roll.
Heather Benton,
Yes.
Jim Hiding, Tracy Lesage,
Approved.
Phil Spiegel, Martin Williams,
Approve.
Elise Yenny,
Approved.
okay, our vote totals are 4 yeses and I apologize, Justin.
Yes.
Okay, our vote totals are 5 yeses and 2 absent members.
Okay, great. I do get to vote. Next on the agenda is item D2, discussion of the financial assistance working group. And this item is being presented by Michelle Harmon.
I guess we did not designate somebody to give the report, and Tracy, you are the only one here who was at that meeting.
Well, you know, it's interesting. When we had the subcommittee meeting, I did not volunteer to be the chair. I know Justin was, and he left so Phil could join. I have rough notes, but I was hoping actually Jim would take the lead on that. I didn't know he wasn't going to be here. So.
Well, I can give a summary of what we've talked about and where the group is right now, but please, jump in or tell me if there's something that I'm missing.
I will. You did a great job summarizing last time, so my money's on you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So, well, I should maybe get the note that I had from last time, but the group, I can say, has really looked at a lot of different aspects. There was some discussion about how we can make these I'm going to, okay, I have the summary pulled up. We talked about how much based on the numbers from our annual report, we know that where the costs of the program is exceeding what we're bringing in to cover it. So the ability to expand the financial assistance program is limited in that way because we don't have an unlimited amount of money. We have our reserve funds that we'll go into, but we want to build something that's sustaining and that will be able to continue to offer and not just through the amount of time that we have the reserves. So some of the discussion about that was related to how much debt we have lent, if it's possible to collect. It seems like the efforts at collections haven't been very successful so far over the history since 2002, the history of the program. And so some of that debt has been and is being written off. And so the direction that the group is going is for something related to scholarships or a grant or something that we won't expect to be paid back. And finding out what the criteria will be for that. So at the very lowest level, talking about how to change what we already have now, lowest level in terms of like making changes, I'm saying. So we have some new information, the criteria that we had for how much somebody needs to make compared to how many people are in their household, compared to how much then they will qualify for financial assistance loan. We've got updated numbers because those were, I think we said from 2011, if I remember correctly. So they were pretty old. So we have some new numbers. So at a very minimum, that's something that the committee can change quickly is updating those numbers. And then in the long term, we're still working on how to how to make a system that will be fair for everybody, not discouraging people who might want the loan, because we talked about people who might qualify for it, but because of their own, just having a sense of honor and knowing that it's going to be difficult for them to pay it back, not wanting to accrue any more debt. And so we don't want people to be discouraged in that sense. Let me look at what else we talked about. So we talked about scholarships, getting rid of, so until then, also discussing whether we can get rid of the interest rate that's charged now. So making the financial assistance loan we have right now interest-free. There was an idea that was, so this was an interesting idea about requiring community service of somebody who is granted this scholarship, or however we try to do this. And there was a lot of talk about that in the last meeting, is community service and how would that work? Is that really something we can do? Can we monitor? And just to tell you a little bit of the progression of it, we landed on no, but there was a lot of reasons that, Tracy was talking about in your world where you work, you get the community service information directly from the agencies that people are working for. And so it would be a very different and difficult task to ask staff now to research places where people do the community service and verify that they did the community service and how much it would be. So, so we spent a while on that last time. Let me see. Is there anything else? I think that's all I got here. Yeah.
I think that's good. I think that's all I had too. I mean, we had some great discussions. Hopefully moving forward, we can come up with solutions. We also needed some answers whether some of the things we could actually do that the bar would allow us to do, or do we need approval to do it? Like, for example, to change the interest rate to 0% or interest free, or to forgive loan, after successful completion, or after community service, or whatever the decision is, whether we could forgive that and how will we go about doing that. So we'll continue those discussions and are happy for input if anybody else had any other ideas.
Melanie was at that meeting too.
Right. I was just going to say that we are engaging with OGC on some of those issues. So we'll have more information for the working group next time, hopefully.
Sounds great. Thank you.
So from the rest of the committee, any ideas or questions or anything about financial assistance that you've all been burning to talk about? No. Justin, do you have
is there any concern? I don't even know if we could really figure out the impact of increasing the threshold or the income level, increasing that threshold, and whether we would be able to sustain an increase of applications by doing so. To be clear, I'm in favor of doing that because it's, but it's just a question of, do we need to make adjustments at other places in order to accommodate for a potential increase in usage of the program? And I don't know how you do that analysis, honestly.
That seems like a math problem that might be beyond me, but I imagine that's something that there is somebody at the bar would know about. We'll take a look and also talk to the Office of Finance. I actually haven't looked at the numbers closely enough to see not only the numbers, but the application. So because you're asking if we change the criteria and now more people are eligible for financial assistance, how will that affect how much more we're paying out? And my initial response is probably not that much more, because it's not that frequent that we deny people financial assistance who apply for it. So so the same people who are applying for it would probably qualify. The question is how many more new people would be applying, and that is hard to tell. It might be something that we need to do on like a trial basis and then see how many new applications we get in, and then we can do math. But
yeah, it doesn't need an answer now, just a thing to think about, because I know one of the first things you mentioned is that we're operating at a deficit. So any increase and any potential increase is going to increase that deficit. So I know there were some changes that were made over the last couple of years because we had some surplus, but maybe we need to look back at those changes as a committee.
I just want to ask something as a do-gooder. Anybody who needs financial assistance and who is a lawyer, I mean, isn't it likely that that is caused by their alcohol, drug, or mental health problem? And wouldn't it be the mandate of this group to make sure it's possible for them to get that assistance?
I agree. We talked about that. In fact, I kept bringing that up. They're like in the most vulnerable time and they actually stepped up to get treatment. So they shouldn't, be discouraged in any shape, way, or form to get it, whether it's monetary or other reasons. So I totally agree.
Yeah.
And go ahead. Sorry. Heather.
I agree in some ways and I disagree in other ways. And I think it's because as someone who is a nonprofit attorney, I also know that finances can come as an issue just because you're struggling to earn enough money and you have loans and whatever that you're paying. I mean, right now people aren't really paying loans, but going, who knows when that'll kick in again. So I'm just, I do think we need to give access to everybody, but I don't want it to be on the presumption that somebody is needing money because of their addiction or their mental health issue, because I think there are it's very multifaceted as to why people can't afford to pay.
Thank you, Heather. I was going to add to that just on a staffing level too. This is something we've been talking about, and regardless of the reason that people need the financial assistance, we're really going to be just trying to focus more for the clinical staff, for the clinical monitoring analyst and the group facilitators to try and do a little more work with bringing up that topic with participants and how they're going to get back to being able to pay and to get a little bit more financial stability. Because of course, the financial assistance that we offer doesn't last forever. The most that somebody can qualify for is 1 year of program expenses. So after that year, at the most, then what? So using that time while they're getting the financial assistance, we don't have a magic wand that we can get people jobs and do, but really trying to focus on talking about, if you can't work as a lawyer, what can you do? What other resources do you have? And maybe trying to tap into resources or encouraging them to talk to people who they normally wouldn't talk to about supporting some of it. So I think the finance conversation culturally is sometimes difficult for people. And so we're really also just trying to encourage them to talk about it more and bring it up more in the groups. Any other ideas, comments?
Thanks, everyone. And Tracy and Jim and Philip, thanks for your volunteering to be part of this working group.
Thank you.
And for your continued work on it in the future. Looking forward to the recommendations. Do we say at the end of the year, or are we going to do it like the meeting before the end of the year?
That's a good idea. Was it April?
I don't
Probably
remember
by the
what
end of
we
the
said.
year. I can't remember either.
We can pull the calendar. I think the intention was end of year because I think that's when our next the
In-person
meeting was set for. But those are flexible things. We can
Yeah.
talk about if it might make sense to do it earlier in the year.
Yeah, I don't know if there are implementation reasons why we would want to do it sooner. Maybe we could catch some February bar applicants and new attorneys there if we were able to do it. And also, I don't know, we would have to do a rule, right? So that would require some public comment. So that would take some time too. and approval by the Supreme
Does
Court,
it
or no?
involve- I don't know that it involves a rule change.
Okay.
That offering some financial assistance is in the rules, but don't quote me on it. I'll have to go back and look, but I don't know that the rules say how we offer the financial assistance.
Okay. Well, just looking forward to the recommendations at the end of the year for sure, or whenever it is. Okay, so seeing nothing further on the financial assistance working group, next on the agenda is item D3, discussion of the benchmark successful completion working group. And this item is also being presented by Michelle Harmon.
Well, I was a staff member at these meetings, but also 2 committee members are here. Do either of you, Heather or Elise, want to talk about the progress, or at least what we've talked about in those?
Yeah, I can jump on that. So we have met a couple times. Essentially, we were kind of tasked with figuring out, is this arbitrary amount of time for successful completion valid in any way? And should we be like looking at other ways to measure success in the program, or other timeframes to measure success in the program? And what we've kind of been tossing around is the idea of making more individualized treatment plans that and kind of trying to put the onus back on the court to say when someone successfully completed, rather than just having a set time frame for everybody, because we know that everybody's going to have different needs and kind of require a different intensity of services. So that's kind of what we've been chewing around. I don't know that we've really landed on anything solid in terms of how to do that, but that's kind of the direction that we're headed.
Can I add one thing to that? You had said that about the court deciding successful completion, and the part that I wanted to add is the court decides successful completion of the alternative discipline program. And so then just allowing the courts to decide how much longer they want us to monitor somebody was what we talked about. So getting rid of the LAP completion idea. So there still will be the alternative discipline program completion that the court will use for their purposes. And then for our purposes, we can monitor people really successfully, and we'll keep monitoring them as long as you want to. So let us know how long you want them monitored for, and then that will be the end date. And then for people who aren't ordered here by the court and they don't have a specific amount of time, it's kind of like it is now when people are voluntary. They come for as long as they want to, as they feel they're benefiting from it. So that's the part of it with successful completion that I think ended on last meeting. The benchmarks for success along the way have been a little more difficult. It's more squishy is the word that I'm thinking of, and I know that's not the right word, but it's definitely more difficult for people who are in recovery. Of course, you can count their days sober. There's a little bit more objectivity to be able to say that the person is sober, that they're stable. But for mental health, there's goals people might meet, but that's different for everybody. And how would we be able to evaluate? So that's really been, I think, the struggle on this committee, is how do we make it fair for everybody, but also personalized to each person's needs and their issues and what they're working on and the goals that they want to reach.
And
So,
I think one of the things we also talked about is really just being able to provide reports to the court, letting them know what the progress has been for someone, so that it's not like the judge is just making this decision in a vacuum, but it's like, here's what the person has done for the last 6 months or whatever, however often they meet. And here's what our recommendation is, but realizing that it's the judge's ultimate decision about whether this person is ready to be released or not. I also think that one of the things, we did really talk about this idea of sort of the nebulousness of creating benchmarks for everybody. And, the fact that it is very easy when you have sobriety, but when you're talking about mental health, people have relapses, but it doesn't mean that they've caused the relapse. It means that, something has triggered, an alteration of their chemical in their brain to like create this mental health issue that they're having again. And so I think we have to be really careful with mental health, not to presume that anybody who has another episode or experiences depression again, or has like a manic episode or a depressive episode is not in a place of recovery, because sometimes they really truly are in a place of recovery, but like things just got in the way. And so it's much harder to create hallmarks and benchmarks for something like that, because you can't really say 2 years of no like depressive episodes. It's just almost impossible. So I think we really struggled with that in terms of how do we quantify something that is so objective.
The collaborative boards do it all the time. And I was thinking too, that some of those participants are voluntary, so there would be no court involved or someone to sign off on that. So we still have to, if we went that route, you'd still have to figure out something else for the people who choose to voluntarily. They're not on probation or anything like that. They're just looking for help. But usually there's statistics and measures. They're not perfect, but usually, there's evidence-based practices that can be utilized to come up with some, measure of when somebody completes it. And it could be different, longer or shorter for others, depending on what those are.
I think one of the challenges we've kind of run into is that there are a lot of those tools, but a lot of them are structured specifically for criminal justice. And so it's kind of hard to translate that into what we need.
That's true. That's a good point.
I have a question. Who is the person who authors the report indicating how much progress someone has made or whether they're ready to leave the program? Is that the case manager?
Right now, we don't do that at all. We don't give our opinion about whether somebody is ready or not, because the graduation criteria, everything is based on time. So it's the amount of time that they've been here. If they've been, what we have now for benchmarks and for completion are what we call 1-year certificates. So they can earn a 1-year certificate of sobriety or mental health stability, or both, depending on what they're working on with us. And then they will take that to the court, and the judges will look at that as one of the things that they need in order to graduate from ADP. And then for our successful complete, and by the way, they can keep earning those. And then the next year they can get another 1-year certificate, next one. So we have that benchmark of 1 year. And then the successful completion requires a minimum of 3 years of continuous sobriety or mental health stability. So we don't have a way of anybody giving an opinion on how this person is doing, what kind of work they've done. Our monitoring and our reports to the court have been as objective as we can make them, based on the monitoring plan. Are they compliant with the plan? Yes or no? And then these benchmarks, and then ultimately the successful completion.
I get it. Well, with alcohol for sure, and I guess drugs, you do have objective indicators for the people who are getting tested. So you actually know how long they've been clean and sober. For mental health, it's a lot more diffuse and vague.
Yes.
I think it's very nuanced too. And I meant to say subjective earlier. I think that you're right. When we talk about sobriety, it's very clear, and it's like either you're in or you're out. It's like being pregnant. Either you're pregnant or you're not. It's kind of like one of those things where like there's no in between stage. But I think with mental health, there's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of perspective. There's a lot of like, okay, if this person is depressed, but now they are doing well, but then they get depressed again, or maybe the person's bipolar and all of a sudden they have other symptom of something else. You know, it's like, how do you classify that? And that was, we really did discuss what Tracy mentioned about these evidence-based tools, but they weren't really an appropriate assessment of the attorneys in the program. And so it's really going to be kind of almost coming up from scratch, what qualifies someone for stability. And it goes beyond, you know, you look at the qualifications of stability. A lot of times it's like, oh, are they in a psych hospital? Are they gravely disabled? Are they, you know, in danger to self or others? That's the like big criteria a lot of times. But then it's like, you know, are they able to function on their job? Can they do their work without like having, you know, whatever, you know, I think some of it is very subjective, but it's also, you know, self-report. It's kind of like those depression inventories you take at the doctor. You kind of see where the person is, and like if they're like a 10 one day and then like in a month they're like a 6, maybe that's improvement. I don't know. So, you know, it's kind of like we really have to look at all of the options for assessing improvement and realize that it is going to be very subjective and based on what the person's own experience is. So.
And how comfortable we are relying on self-report, because they will, especially if there's something at stake, like their discipline. You know, we get a hint of it sometimes if we call people and their voicemail is full. That's usually not a good sign if we can't leave a voicemail for somebody because it's full. But we don't, you know, we don't know if they haven't checked their email in several days and they're not responding to clients. You know, we can only get so much information. So it's an extra layer. This committee has such a difficult task. This is a really hard question, and I congratulate this committee for taking it on, because this is not a new question. I mean, this is what these are the criteria we've been working with for 20 years. And so now, like, the idea of taking this on and trying to think about it again is a big one. And I think it shows why we've kind of stuck with this for 20 years, because it's such a hard question. And it's none of us have found yet any examples of a way to do it differently that already exists that we can copy, at least that's similar enough, right? Because we talked about that. We talked about what happens in criminal justice. We also talked about what happens in other types of monitoring, like the medical boards monitoring, and at the state Federation of State Physician Health Programs criteria for monitoring. But theirs are all longer periods of time, and it is still time-based. And I don't know that there's much of an appetite here at the bar to make our monitoring even longer, and to say to the court, for example, not only are we not going to graduate people after 3 years anymore, it's going to be 5 years and they have to be here even longer. I think then that would undermine what we're doing, because you would just have them saying then, well, then it's essentially saying we don't do the graduation anymore at all, because they will not require people to graduate. So we're trying to go in a direction that will be, like I said at the beginning, very difficult to be both fair and personalized for each individual.
I'm wondering if there's any literature or studies out there involving attorneys. I wonder.
Attorneys
and success, you know, in programs such as these. I'm just curious. I was, for some reason, I was thinking maybe when Patrick Krill did that study, he had some metrics in there on, you know, what was deemed completion, successful completion. I'm just curious. Maybe there isn't any, but I was just wondering. I could try to look and see.
Yeah, let me know what you find. I'm not thinking of any. I definitely am thinking of metrics that from Patrick Krill or from others about looking at what the problems are with attorneys, but I don't remember seeing anything that's about, you know, how we've measured a solution and here's what.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Well, and Michelle had reached out to like the listserv of all of the lab directors, and we're not the only ones having this issue for sure. And in fact, we got some responses essentially saying, don't even bother doing this. It's counter to the like purpose of the program. So based on that response, I don't know that there would be a lot of literature out there.
Yeah. But I suppose, just in thinking, one thing to determine the success is, lack of relapse, right? So maybe there's some tool or some evidence out there or data we could capture that shows like if someone's sober for 3 years, their likelihood of relapsing drops to 1% or something.
Mhm.
Then that could be the metric. Or if it's within a year, they could relapse at 20%, so that a year doesn't work. So maybe that's what I was thinking. Maybe there's some data that shows, or medication compliance, or, attending therapy regularly, things like that. Maintaining job, stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I think that's what we're trying to sort out. The sobriety issue is really one of, at what point, you're right, at what point does the rate of relapse drop? And do we want to say that's the point of which we would say someone's complete, or is it really more of like they've completed this, they're holding their job, they're doing what they need to do, they're responding to their clients, and that sort of signifies completion. It's a little subjective, but at the same time, we can kind of say across the board, a time for sobriety. I think that's pretty easy. I think where we're really struggling is the mental health piece. And really, like I said, I think that mental health is such a function of your own brain chemistry sometimes. And it's like, if I could take out my brain and like get it to do something, I would, and it doesn't always do that. And so I think that's kind of the struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did found, the information, which I think is what the medical board, the state physician health programs uses, is the 5-year number for relapse. And that after 5 years of sobriety, the likelihood of, it's the likelihood of being diagnosed with a substance use disorder goes back down to the level of the general population. That puts us back with, okay, well, do we want to increase it then from 3 to 5 years, or is that going the opposite way that we want to do it? And some people actually come to us having been sober for a number of years. So, but we haven't been testing them. We can't verify it. So do we take their word for it? And
I think
so many layers.
One of the other issues too is that that's like mean level data. And so like for somebody who has kind of an earlier, maybe not as severe substance use disorder, they might not need as much time. So that's where the kind of individualization piece comes in as well.
I definitely agree, because I think when we're talking about substance abuse, it's like everybody has a different bottom sometimes. And one of those things that's like a really good predictor of relapse, I've heard, is that if you sort of have a high bottom, it's very easy to say, oh, I really don't have a problem. I didn't lose my job. I didn't drive my car into a wall. I still have money in the bank. Whereas someone who is completely hit rock bottom can be like, I have nothing. And if I don't stay sober, I have nowhere to go. But at the same time, someone who's completely hit rock bottom may completely relapse because they're like, I can't live without this drug. Whereas someone who has a high bottom could, say, well, I can live without it and I'm whatever. So it is very individualized at the same time. And I think, it's one of those things where, like Michelle was saying, there's data to support certain things, but we really have to individualize it for everybody, because I do think that, we can have sort of like Elise was saying, a mean of things, but like a mean of like, you must complete 3 years, but 3 years doesn't mean you're out of the program. 3 years could mean like you can't be complete for 3 years maybe, but at that 3-year mark, we reassess and see if it's appropriate to like release you from the program, or if you need more time. I mean, some people just need more time. I know when I got sober, I stayed sober, but this was like my 3rd sobriety. So I had different motivation to do it than I did the first time around when I was 18, you know? And so it's like, I think it's people are in a different place all the time. And sometimes like we may find someone who is doing really well. They hit their 3 years, but then they get a new job. Their boyfriend broke up with them and they don't have a car, you know, and they live in LA, you know, Inland Empire, let's say. And it's like, do you release someone like that? Or do you say, this person really needs more support? What can we do to continue to support them, even though they've hit their 3 years, because they're at risk of relapse because life circumstances have gotten to the point where they could relapse out of like, because they don't have good solutions or tools, you know, or they need support, they don't have support. So that's just another thought too.
So I guess in conclusion, we're working on it.
Any additional discussion on this topic? I know it's a big one, and whereas I think for the financial assistance, we were able to identify things pretty quickly and work through those. I think this one is a very different type of problem issue. I don't call it problem, an issue, and may require multiple years, like a standing committee for this. So it's not to put you under undue pressure to like deliver everything that you think, you know, if you have a good idea for this year, I think that should be something we move forward with for this year and continue the conversation because it's a worthwhile discussion. Okay. Well, that concludes today's agenda. The next LAP Oversight Committee meeting is scheduled for Friday, June 16th from 12 to 2 p.m. and it will take place remotely. I know previously we said this would be in person, but I think as Erica had mentioned earlier, it would be great if we could do our recommendations at the end of the year in person together and kind of celebrate, you know, really a good year of great work. So with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Great, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.